Good afternoon, Angry Anderson. Welcome to 103.7 3WAY-FM. Thanks very much for joining us.
Mate, thank you for asking.
Oh, it's our pleasure, mate. Look, Angry Anderson's band's debut single, Realise, Legalise, was released recently. Great song. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, the AA band. And just a reminder, brothers and sisters, it doesn't stand for Alcoholics Anonymous. That's my initials, Angry Anderson.
Okay. Look.
So we're going to go by the name Angry Anderson Band until we sort of come up with, I don't know, maybe something a bit more clever.
Okay, yeah, well, it sounds fine to me. It's sort of pretty obvious what the band's all about, mate, but that's great.
With marketing being what it is, yeah, it sort of says it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, now I know the song actually dates back a long way. It contains quite a clear and strong message as well. Can you tell us about the history behind the song and the message it's sending?
Originally, actually, it was pressed onto a single. I think I own half of them. I think there was only like 50 or 100 done. It was in the late 70s. The late and legendary Lobby Lloyd was playing bass in the band. We were at that stage a four-piece, so I think it was around about 78.
Right.
Ish, and we were in Melbourne for a few months, and a friend of his was involved in starting the then fledgling marijuana party to lobby to decriminalise domestic or recreational use, so that young people would not end up with a criminal record and or in some cases actually do time in jail, which is a ridiculous situation when you think that drunken drivers weren't penalised as heavily as marijuana smokers. But again, that was way back in the 70s.
Right.
And so we went in, and it was a jam session to try and come up with some ideas for an actual song. And it never got, in reality, in real terms, it never got past the jam stage. We recorded the rough idea, which is what was printed on singles. It was only ever done in singles, obviously, and the never got an official release. So it's become like I suppose a collector's item.
Right.
There are some actual discs in circulation. I've met a few people that said, "Oh, I have one."
Oh, okay.
How they come about it, I'll never know. Gil Matthews, when he started Aztec Records, to find and digitally re-enhance and then release some of the what he called some of the legendary early 70s Australian music that basically come out of Melbourne but Australia-wide. And Buster Brown was the first release on that label, and that was about 15 years ago, I think. And he included a couple of bonus tracks, one of them being Realise, Legalise, and that was the original. But it laid around for years, and I think what happened in my education over the years to do with cannabis, the genus cannabis, has culminated in the last 10 years a growing appreciation and valuation of the medicinal qualities held within cannabis. So I do not believe that it should be held forever as a prohibited substance. I think we've gone past that as an intellectuality as far as our society goes. I mean, someone was telling me actually this morning that in New Zealand, even though cannabis is still illegal, you can buy ecstasy and other pill-formed party drugs across the counter, which I find staggering, knowing but then again, it is apparently these things are manufactured and substance controlled. So there is some responsibility taken, but they're a drug that can produce psychosis, I mean, some studies have actually said the same about cannabis, but we're talking about constant use over many, 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 many years.
Right.
And a use of every, like some people addicted to the process, where they smoke hourly or every couple of hours. Anyway, they're the sort of issues that need to be taken up at another date by somebody else. But my focus has always been, for a long, long time, is our lack of appreciation as a society for the medicinal qualities that cannabis holds naturally.
Right.
And I have come into first-hand contact with families that use cannabis, whether it be leaf to smoke, and whether it be resin and or oil, applied to different levels of pain and anxiety, depression, of course, is rife today. But the levels of pain, people deal with, like particularly the effects of chemotherapy when they're battling cancer.
Yep.
But it has multiplicity of uses, and I just think it's long time overdue, high time, in other words, that we take advantage of this rapidly changing and world that we live in, the upheaval, the agitation, the aggravation, that we take advantage of it. People are looking for sustainability with products. It could replace paper easily, so we would no longer need to cut down old growth forests for an example, to make wood pulp.
Yep.
It can replace plastic.
Right.
So if it ends up in a landfill or it ends up in the ocean, it's biodegradable, right? Completely. I mean, it's 100%. It just dissipates and it goes back to nature from whence it came.
Right.
So the medicinal qualities of the genus cannabis are largely unappreciated by people at large, because they do not understand. In a day, like we live in a day where, let's face it, one of the key phrases is, accept the science.
Yep.
Believe the science.
Yep.
Listen to the science. Whatever. So science. Okay, yeah, fine. Science is one component, and the science has proven that the genus cannabis can be medicinally applied in a myriad of different ways and cause great relief from pain, anxiety, and it's just a beneficial plant.
Yeah, no, it's great.
It needs to be recognised as that.
Absolutely. Look, what's the reaction of the song been like? Do you think it's helping to get the message across, or is it a little bit too early to judge?
I think possibly, yes. I think it's a bit early to gauge any social effect. The reason we put it out there was because we were looking for original material.
Yep.
I wanted to make a statement. The AA ban is long overdue, in my experience. I've been trying to do this for a great many years, and it's finally come to fruition. So I didn't want to waste the opportunity. I thought, okay, if we're going to stamp the band as a different musical animal than whatever I've done before,
yep.
But it's going to go back to, I don't know if you're aware of, but I did 2 albums for Mushroom in the early 80s or in the 80s, and the first one was a very diverse album.
Right.
The song Suddenly came off that album.
Yeah, I know it. Yep.
The album was called Beats from a Single Drum. Right. And it has the first single off it was a song called Calling, which is it's written about the language of Wales, and Wales, their language is, and I wrote it while watching a documentary by the Cousteau family, Cousteau, whatever, Jacques Cousteau, his son and his daughter-in-law, they embarked on a worldwide trip right around all the oceans of the world, and with sound equipment they recorded the songs of Wales, and they came to understand that the songs of Wales are indeed a language. It's
right.
Their language.
Yep.
So what a wonderful insight into Wales that their language is song.
It's incredible, isn't it, really?
Yes. You see, some animals are quite guttural in the way that they communicate. Some primates definitely are. Dogs, obviously, barking. Cats with the strange sounds that only cats can make.
Yeah.
Birds, of course, use song, but they also use sharp, sort of sharp sounds and a configuration of sounds which turns into a language. But anyway, having said that, we live in this world now where we're looking for more sustainable products. We're looking to conservationally sound products. Of course, the great debate over renewable energy will go on for many, many, many years before they get it right. But technology is on our side there, and eventually they will. Quite understandably, they'll be able to perfect the science, if you like, and we will have cheap, affordable, renewable energy. But in the same way, we are as a society, as the race of sapien, the world over, we're looking for more natural products, which is, the contradiction. Like, science can solve some problems, but nature is our greatest ally. And to go against nature, of course, is to go against the natural process.
Yep.
Part of the natural process, which leads me back to cannabis. It's a product that comes from nature, created by nature. It is natural in every aspect of its being, and so therefore it is the completely ecologically sound product. It is sound in every sense. It comes and it goes back from whence it came. So it's a product we definitely should be looking at, particularly in the medicinal application.
Fantastic. Look, with the Angry Anderson band, can we talk about them for a moment? I know that.
Sure.
Look, with the song "Realise, Legalise," you sort of touched on it with a lot of electronica and funk in there, which is something that we're not used to with the Angry Anderson band. So with the Angry Anderson band, you're obviously made up of musos that are fairly competent at that style of music, mate.
They're competent in every style of music. My only advice, I certainly wouldn't use the word instruction, but the input that I gave Tim and the boys, and I said, look, we're not going to label ourselves. We're going to be an R&B soul sort of a band.
Right.
That's going to be our forte. It's going to be the basis of a lot of the songs that we write and or play. My favourite rock and roll band has always been the Faces.
Okay.
With the Rod Stewart, Ronnie Wood lineup with Ian McLaughlin and Kenny Jones and that classic, wonderfully white R&B rock and roll band.
Well, you were actually described as the Australian answer to Rod Stewart at one stage, weren't you? I read somewhere. Hey? That's sort of the voice, and that's a bit of an accolade.
No. I tell you what, there's been a few people that, and I'm very flattered by the comparison.
Well,
I think as far back as talking about Buster Brown, I remember that we used to do a lot of openings for visiting bands. A band that we played a lot with on Saturdays and afternoon sessions or Sundays was the Lardy Dars.
Right, yep.
And at that time, it was Kevin, Keith Barber, and Rockwell T. James. And someone said to Rockwell, he told me this story later when we got to be very, very close friends.
Yep.
Someone said, you should come and see this band Buster that always opens for you. And so he walked in, and he said he walked in the back, through the back, and he was out the back, and he heard me singing, and he said, sounds like Roddy Stewart.
Yeah, there you go.
Only with bigger balls.
I reckon that's a pretty good description, really. It's
that came from Rockwell T, and and a finer player and man I've yet to meet. God rest his soul. He only passed recently.
Recently, yeah.
But, so the comparison has been there. And like I say, I'm very flattered by it, very grateful for someone that thinks of me in that game. But it's more the sound of the voice than Rod Stewart is probably one of my 3 or 4, maybe half a dozen favourite singers of all time.
Right.
But then again, someone who is incredibly, diverse away from that sound is people with great voices, like Otis Redding, etc. They've had that gravelly component to their voice, right? So, and it's because of the way they sing, which is the same way I do. I sing, I don't sing from the diaphragm. And basically from the chest, the lungs,
right?
And a lot of the sound quality comes from the throat itself. Whereas a trained singer will sing from the diaphragm and push a pure sound out
right
from below the throat, right? But
it's interesting. With the Angry Anderson Band, you obviously see it as an ongoing concern. With you got plans for the future, make an album perhaps and gig, all that sort of stuff.
We are actually in the throes of making an album.
Great.
Some of the material, we've gone back to those 2 Mushroom albums. The first one, Suddenly, came off. We've re-recorded Suddenly more as a piano, organ, acoustic guitar sounding track.
Wow.
We've done the whale song, Calling Again.
Yep.
We've done a song off it called Frightened Kid, which is about a kid being bullied at school.
Right.
Which I was,
right.
And many kids are. So there's a couple of tracks that we picked up off Beats from a Single Drum, as we did from Blood from Stone, which Bound for Glory came off.
Fantastic. Look, have you got a sort of a date in mind for the release, or is it a bit too early to sort of be thinking in those terms?
Yeah, it's not complete yet. We've got a few more original songs. We just recorded an original song written by Tim and James Rain for me.
Right.
A really beaut song. We just did it a couple of days ago, and it's called No Closing Time.
Right.
And it's like a bar scene, but it's about keeping your heart open. And obviously between James and Tim, they came up with that angle, and it suits me because it's very, very Rod Stewart-y in the pitch range, the key, and we're going to, because the band that has become a band is a band within its own right, which is a Melbourne band called Palace of the King.
Right.
So they'll operate as Palace of the King while I'm off doing the Rosie Tarts.
Yep.
And, when we can, we'll come together as the AA band and play within our own right.
That's great. But, so we can look forward to seeing you maybe tour and obviously do some gigs about town.
We, unfortunately, if we all go back to work next year, between the two of us and members of the Palace of the King are busy playing in other people's bands.
Right.
Tim's off playing very soon with John Stevens. The drummer plays with another band. Another one of the guitar players plays with another band. But they get hired to play in other people's bands.
Right.
What's happened is that the window that we have is September, October next year. So I think around about July the album will come out.
Okay. Look forward to it.
There'll probably be another single between now and then.
Right.
Because Realise will be on the album, obviously.
Yep.
And so we'll do a national tour of the AA band through September, October.
Fantastic. Look forward to it. Look, with can we go back a little bit in the career of Angry Anderson? Look, we've sort of talked about it a little bit already, but look, the name Angry. I know you're probably sick to death of being asked this question. You would have been asked a million times, but can I ask it? Where did the name Angry come from?
Well, the person who, as I suppose you know, I was born and raised in Melbourne.
Yep.
And I only left Melbourne to eventually join Rose Tattoo. So 74 was the first time I went to Sydney. 75 I moved there permanently, and the band started in 76. Having said that, around about 72, 73, I was given the nickname Angry Ant.
Right.
By a very colourful identity around Melbourne, a guy called Mangy Mick Maluzak. And I'd love to meet up with him. I'd love to catch up with him again after all these years. But
Mangy Mick.
Mangy Mick Maluzak. And he said he was the descendant of Russian Cossacks.
Okay.
But anyway, having said that, very colourful identity at that time in the early 70s. He and I were best of mates for quite a few years. And he just thought it was a curious observation of his that someone that was so little, and he was a fairly large bloke, powerfully built bloke, and he just thought he nicknamed me the Angry Ant because he said used to often say to me sometimes when there'd be sort of like some sort of little altercation or scrape or whatever. He said, you're an angry little mongrel, aren't you? and I said, well, not by nature, but I had a hair trigger.
Yeah.
And I had a very, very bad temper, which I inherited from my biological father,
right?
Who was an extremely violent man, physically and emotionally.
Right.
But it's one of those things that I've grappled with all my life, and successfully, I've been able to control it for the most part.
Ah, that's fantastic.
But, that's how I got the nickname Angry Ant, and everyone dropped the ant part because it was a bit of a mouthful.
It's interesting. It's one of the most well-known names in Australia. It really is. You say Angry Anderson, everyone knows you, mate. So it's fantastic. Yeah, look.
I think that's changing now as we all get older. I'm grateful for that.
Well, look, everyone I speak to still knows you, mate. So it doesn't matter what age. So it's fantastic. Look, I know originally when you started out in music, you're actually a guitarist. And
I wanted to be.
You wanted to be. How good were you?
No, not at all. To the point where like I was fumbling between chords.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably a bit of a disadvantage, isn't it? Sort of makes it a bit hard.
Well, I'd only just started. I brought a guitar. My uncle actually bought me an acoustic guitar.
Right.
And I brought a big single cutaway. I wish I still had it actually, and had a pickup in it so I could play it. And I bought a little, a very, very little amp. With valves in it, and we had clips on the side and it opened up, and they were very common in that day. And
yeah.
So I've turned up to not rehearsals, but tryouts to these guys. The word got around these guys were forming a band. So I turned up and they said, we're not looking for a guitar player, we're looking for a singer.
Yep.
And I said, okay. And they said, all right, show us what you can do. So there's me, strum, change chords, strum. They said, you can't play guitar. I said, well, yeah, but I'm willing to learn.
Yeah.
So the other two guitar players started playing, and they played proficiently.
Oh, okay.
So they said, well, you're the singer. I said, well, I'll give it a go.
Well, you must have impressed them because here we are. How much later? 50 or 60 years later.
I'm talking about late teens.
Oh, okay.
I'm 74 now.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? So look with
it's just one of those things. What it proved, and of course, I didn't know that at the time. I didn't articulate the thought process, but some people call it providence, some people call it destiny, but there's some sort of not premeditated design that says everything is going to be just like this. But a great wisdom is that the divine or the inspiration, or whatever you like to call it, will put you at any one given time in your life where you should be.
Yep.
And there's opportunities that present themselves to us. This is a spiritual concept,
right,
which I've accepted wholly and solely. But life will present to any one given person situations, decisions, like, you can go this way or you can go that way. Every day of your life. You might not necessarily need them every day of your life, but they're going to be there when you need them. And that was a decision that I didn't make. I turned up to a rehearsal, not able to do the job that I wanted, but I ended up doing the job that I was destined for.
Fantastic. And look, among the many things you've done in your life, you've also done a lot of acting.
But some people might not call it.
Well, it impressed the hell out of me, mate. I'm telling you. With both TV and movies, I had a look, and you've got a very long filmography there. I still remember you clearly as Iron Bar and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Wow.
Yes, well, that was.
You actually survived. You're one of the few that actually survived.
Well, I love the idea, because the story behind that is. We get out in the desert, and most of the crew had packed up and gone home.
Right.
There was a few mechanics and there was a few stunt guys, and we were tidying up. And Mel. This is the curious thing about Mel, and I've come to admire and respect his work. I mean, as a producer, as an actor, he's a brilliant producer. He's a very good actor.
Yep.
But, he has he's like one of those really great actors like, I don't know, people who sort of almost play themselves in a role.
Yep.
And there's other people who become the character in the role.
Right.
Like Hopkins doing Hannibal Lecter. I mean, Hopkins has done, a whole handful of amazing roles where he's played all these different people. But he becomes that person.
Yeah.
Anyway, look at the Fastest Indian. I mean, just an absolutely brilliant film.
Yeah.
And what a part he played. Anyway, so Mel turns around and says, those last few scenes where we're in it together, he said, I'm going to stay. Because George said, look, you can film them and you can go home. Yep. And he said, no. Mel said, no, I want to interact with Iron Bar, with Angry's character.
Yep.
And, even if we weren't together in a scene like we were earlier in the movie, but it was our finishing scenes, like the chase, the crash.
Yep.
So anyway, we get to the crash, and we've done the crash, and George says, that's fantastic. He said, and we were having dinner, and he said, I just want to shoot tomorrow the final scene, which is the final thing in the movie.
Yeah.
And he said, Iron Bar is in the wreckage, dying.
Oh, okay.
and there was one finish where Mel walks up to the wreck, and he sees Iron Bar take his last breath.
Yep.
And then George said, I've got this other idea. When he walks up, Iron Bar, to all intents and purposes, dying. He's going to die. He looks up, he sees Mel, or Max, and gives him the finger. And as if to say, forget it. I'm not going, you're not done with me yet.
Right.
And George said, which never happened, he said, in that way, we can maybe resurrect the character in the next part. But it didn't happen.
Right.
But yeah, the finger did. It was spread. And he chose that over the other, where his hand flops down, blood runs down it, covers the hand, and that's Iron Bar's final scene. But he chose the finger and immortalised me because of it.
Fantastic. Look, you never know. They might actually do another one. You never know, mate. It's never too late.
Yeah.
Oh, how would that be? Iron Bar returns in Mad Max whatever it is, 6 or 7 or whatever.
No, it'll be 5. They're actually
5.
doing it now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Fantastic.
I think so. Someone they may be casting.
Well,
I think Hardy wants to, or did after his last experience. There's another brilliant actor. My Godfather. Like, there's a guy who is the epitome of what I was talking about before. When he plays a part, I mean, I don't know if you've seen much of Hardy's work.
No, not a lot. No.
Oh, if you get the time to watch an actor evolve, like he played the Cray brothers.
Right. Yeah.
Twins.
He played both.
He played both.
Right.
He's brilliant.
Fantastic.
Absolutely brilliant. And he played a Southern Moonshiner in a movie, and that was brilliant too. I mean, of course, he did the Fury Road or whatever it's called. But yeah, no, he's a brilliant actor. But I said to George once, wouldn't it be good if somehow Max pulls Iron Bar out of the wreck? But he wouldn't. It'd be something he'd be compelled to do, because deep inside of Max is he's a decent human being.
Yeah.
Even though he's sort of like comes across as a bit sort of like he's like an anti-hero.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he pulls Iron Bar out of the wreck, nurses him back to health, and they become the modern day Cisco and Pancho. They become the modern day, like, the hero and the sidekick.
Yeah, that's great. Look, we could talk to you all day, Angry. Thanks so much. Look, before we let you go, though, look, we have to talk about all the awards. Over the years, you've received formal recognition for your contribution to Aussie music, of course, but you've also been recognised for things you've done outside of music. Look, you received an Order of Australia in 2006 for your work as a youth advocate. Look, you must be really proud of what you've also been able to achieve outside of music.
I am. I'm at an age now where being proud of my own achievements finally sits comfortably with me.
Great.
I remember Mum was in the hairdressers, and it was a week after, and the lady of the hairdresser said to her, "Oh, Rosemary, you must be so proud of Gary." And she said, "Yes, I am." She said, "I'm proud of Gary. He's always made me proud."
Yep.
Even though, she said, as a kid he was dark and he was troubled, and he had some moments where I thought he was going to end up in serious trouble.
Right.
But she said he's made, and she said, not, no one was expecting him to get an AM. And because Mum had no idea what she was talking about, and she said, "Oh, what did he get?" And she said, the hairdresser said, "Well, he was in the honours list. He got an AM, which stands for Australia Medal." And Mum said, so she goes home to Dad. She goes, "Bert, Gary got an AM."
Right.
And Bert said, "No." And she said, "Yeah." And "What's that?" And he said, he said, "Quick, we got to ring him. And so they rang me and to congratulate me. And Mum had no idea. And anyway, the next time I was down there, which was only a few weeks later, this is many years ago. This is like weeks after I got the AM.
Yep.
And Mum was in tears. And we were all in tears.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yep.
But dear old Mum, she said, I just can't believe it. And she kept reading out,
right.
the citation over and over again. I said, "Mum, please, you're making me very uncomfortable."
Yeah.
But I think it was probably the proudest day of my life to make my mum, that proud. I mean,
Yep.
she's always been proud of me, loves me dearly. Well, I've lost her. We've lost her to dementia, so
yeah, right.
That's another loss to try and deal with. But I have now come to the philosophic view that And I've always, I've always prescribed to that life is about struggle, life is about pain. And I've said, 1,000 times, if I've said once that, pain is our constant companion and it's our greatest teacher. But in recent years, I've had to learn that, harder than I ever imagined.
Yeah. Yeah, look, thanks so much for joining us, Stay Angry. It's been absolutely fantastic, mate.